Hi, I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that X-Men First Class is no perfect movie. And today I'm actually joined by a special guest who's here to help me review First Class for you today. So everyone, please welcome Christian Bucks.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Christian, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm doing a collaboration with Tyler Wolf. You can check out his YouTube channel, put it in the description. I mean, this is part of his video on his channel anyways. So, what we're collaborating on is a review in honor of X-Men Apocalypse coming out very, very soon.
So in X-Men First Class, we see how the X-Men were created. In 1962, Charles Xavier, this time played by James McAvoy, and Raven, aka Mystique, played by Jennifer Lawrence, are recruited by the CIA when they discover that a mutant named Sebastian Shaw and his evil Hellfire Club plan to instigate a nuclear war to kill all the humans in the world and create an Earth that is entirely made up of mutants. And a young Eric Langshire, who this time is played by Michael Fassbender, decides to team up with the X-Men so he can seek revenge on Shaw for past events, while he is also trying to convince his other team members that mutants in general are superior than mutants and don't need to coexist with them.
X-Men First Class. So, here's my history with X-Men, quick. I love the X-Men. I used to watch the cartoons all the time, whichever one was on. Wolverine and the X-Men, the original 90s show, anything that was on. I loved the X-Men. I loved the movies. I watched them millions of times growing up as a kid. And I liked the whole approach that it was very human because all the mutants were just different, not accepted. And being like a quiet, reserved kid, I related to it a lot. And I think that's something X-Men does very well still today, is it connects to an audience that feels different or unwanted. Which is really good because it helps with that, especially with X-Men First Class. First Class came out after a few less than good X-Men movies. Since 2011, it is my favorite X-Men movie. It is debatably my favorite comic book movie of all time. It's so damn good, and they nailed everything.
What sets First Class apart from the other X-Men movies, in my opinion, is its direction and its style. Because not only does the production design, set design, and costume design perfectly capture the look and feel of the 1960s, but Matthew Vaughn as a director chooses to be as visual as possible when he is telling a story. Because as much as I like the first two movies in the original trilogy, there are so many scenes that relied on exposition when it came to certain characters' backstories. But in this one, Vaughn chooses to show the audience each character's past backstory, even if it only appears for like a few moments. When Charles and Raven first meet each other when they're kids and they start to connect, or when we see Magneto as a prisoner of war in Nazi Germany, these scenes, in my opinion, have more impact than others in the original trilogy because they don't rely on exposition and they allow the characters to share their feelings and their past events as real people and with naturalistic dialogue. And even lesser characters are given moments that are still small, but they say a lot about them. For instance, when we first see Havoc in a solitary confinement cell, in just a few seconds we can see that he is very powerful in his abilities, he is a bit volatile, and he does prefer keeping his distance away from others because he doesn't know how to control his powers as well. Now hear me out when I say this, okay? Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen were fantastic as Professor X and Magneto, and I think that's because both of them were each the wise sage in their different sides of the mutant-human debate. But in my opinion, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are my favorite versions of these two characters. McAvoy does still portray Xavier as a man who has a lot of wisdom and insight into people, and it makes sense considering he can get into people's minds, look at how they view the world, and is able to persuade them otherwise. But he is still a young man. He does like to flirt with young women, he does like to party to celebrate an occasion, and it's nice seeing Professor X as a more naturalistic person as opposed to just the wise sage. And in my opinion, what makes Fassbender's Magneto so fascinating is that When we see him interact with future henchmen like Mystique by encouraging her and saying that she's more beautiful in her natural form, it's easy to see how he's able to convince her that mutants are superior by feeding to her inner insecurities. And in a way, he is being manipulative, but he does stand by his opinion that mutants are stronger and that she is stronger than everyone else.
Casting, first of all. James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as young Professor Xavier and Magneto, respectively, perfectly nailed the casting choices there. McAvoy gives an arrogance to Professor X that we're not really used to. We get hints of it through Patrick Stewart, but this really defines his character in this one. He's cocky. He's a genius still, but he's cocky because he knows about it. He's like a womanizer. Magneto is just silent and strong and powerful in this one, and you really get a sense of his arrogance and his naive sort of stance that he holds throughout the entire series. Something that is very well balanced through Xavier's beginning to act as a leader for this team and for people in general. He tries to help Eric balance rage and serenity, which is a beautiful scene, shot wonderfully.
And what surprised me the most about First Class was just how the characters' chemistry and these subtle similarities between adversaries were examined. The scene in which Charles compares rage and serenity while talking to Eric, and he reminds him of certain memories that he had forgotten. You can really see in Fassbender's eyes that he really appreciates Charles for helping him, and that you can really feel genuinely disappointed as he is when he and Charles do split apart at the very end. And when you look at Magneto and Shaw, you can actually kind of see that they're very similar in that they both believe in mutant superiority, both have their own group of followers who they've been able to sway. And it's kind of ironic, actually, that Magneto, in many ways, is actually Sebastian Shaw's successor, only in a very tragic way.
Rose Byrne as Moira Taggart, a CIA agent, I believe, or FBI, something like that. Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, who did a very good job. Nicholas Hoult as Beast. Kevin Bacon as the villain in this, which seems strange if you think about it, Kevin Bacon being a X-Men villain, but he did a very good job in this. He was believable, he was threatening. The villain had a very good backstory with Eric, because Kevin Bacon's character used to be a Nazi and he shot his mother in front of him to bring Eric's powers to the forefront, which is something that I think they explored very well in this film. They made it about Magneto and Professor X. Specifically, they focused a lot of the weight in this film dramatically on Magneto, which is something that we really needed, especially casting Michael Fassbender in a role like this. You are going to use him to his fullest potential, and they did in this.
Kevin Bacon as the villain was something that I was very skeptical about, mostly because I haven't seen him play a villain before, and the character's motivation is pretty standard by X-Men standards, is that he just wants humans gone, mutants rule, everything like that. But what makes his performance as Shaw so enjoyable to watch is that he is very charismatic and charming, whereas the other X-Men villains were more emphasized on how ruthless they are. Even when Shaw is threatening others, like in the opening sequence when he meets Eric in the concentration camp, he still has a full smile on his face and he is verbally as polite as possible. Nicholas Hoult is also very good as Beast, underplaying the role of someone who wants to help other mutants, but also wants to hide his own mutation so desperately from the rest of the world. And Jennifer Lawrence is good as Raven, but it wasn't until Days of Future Past that I really started to enjoy how morally blurred her personality and ethics were. As for minor problems, there are two performances that I didn't really enjoy that much, and they're Rose Byrne as Moira McTaggart and January Jones as Emma Frost. Now, don't get me wrong, Rose Byrne is a very talented actress. I liked her in Bridesmaids, and I'm sure she was very entertaining and enjoyable in Damages. But there are some moments in this movie where she has these really emotionless eyes, and she doesn't always look invested in what she's doing. January Jones, on the other hand, in my opinion, is completely bland and dull, like facial expression and voice-wise throughout the whole movie. Not once did I believe any emotion that this actress was portraying, And I know that she's supposed to have this dry wit like she does in the comics, but she is emotionless in certain scenes where no rational human being would be. Like, if she doesn't seem the least bit concerned about being in prison and Shaw has no likely chance of rescuing her, it's really hard to connect with her if she's not gonna react in a naturalistic way to what's going on. And really minor nitpicks here. I thought that the other members of the Hellfire Club were very forgettable, in all honesty. A couple of them, I didn't even remember their names. And the effects on how Shaw absorbs his energy, CGI-wise, they looked pretty phony and kind of looked like Photoshop, to be honest. But, you know, that aside, First Class is very smartly written, well acted, and is a very exciting entry in the X-Men franchise. And for that reason, I'm going to give First Class a 4 out of 5.
Overall, I love this movie just because it feels like it's a comic book brought to life. You have the crazy stuff in there, you have the dramatic moments, you have the serious moments, the comedic moments. Setting is very good, it's during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So X-Men First Class really established this series as being something that a lot of people can relate to, something that makes more sense again with all the timeline mumbo-jumbo that was caused in the ones before it. And it really gave us a good, new, refreshing look on one of the greatest teams in comic book history. That's really all I have to say about this film. It gives my highest recommendation. It's one of my favorite movies I own, and I own like 500 movies. Very good starting point. You're gonna get a few extra references if you've seen the other films, but you don't need to at all to see this. Definitely check this out. Check out Days of Future Past, and go check out X-Men Apocalypse when it hits theaters next week, I believe. Tyler, thank you for having me on your channel. This was fun. I'm glad I got to do this with you. And yeah, like, subscribe to him, share, fun stuff. Do it to me too. Like, subscribe, all that. And I'll see you in the next video.
Guys, thanks for watching. I put a link in the description below for Christian's channel. Definitely check him out. He does video reviews, he does trailer breakdowns, he does vlogs, and he also, I believe, does videos on WrestleMania. Either way, definitely check him out. He seems like a really cool guy, and his videos are very good in my opinion. Thanks for watching. Take care.